You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shemaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shemaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio, man. We are here once again. And like always, we have a special guest. And today, it's not just going to be one guest. It's going to be multiple guests. We're going to talk to an awesome band. It is the NoBS Music. And I just want to say thank you so much for their time being on the show today. We have Scott, we have Brad, and we have David. So I just want to start off with Brad and say, man, let's tell the audience a little bit about the history of the band.
Well, my brothers and I, we grew up in Iowa, New Mexico, and Texas. And when we were in Texas, we got to hear a lot of blues and a lot of great blues players and start our own rock and roll bands. And for Scott and I, this lasted till the late 60s, and we came to the Haight-Ashbury and started playing psychedelic music in a commune, which is a story people have heard, but not many have lived. And David came out to California and joined us in 76. And by 1980, we decided to form this band. And the real name, which I can't probably say on the air, well, they wouldn't spell it out on a marquee. So they put, what if we put NoBS?
Yeah.
And then people started going, NoBS, is that the knobs? So one thing led to another, and there we were. But the recording that we've got here is from our second year of playing, and it's a live recording that my wife Deb and I discovered. It was actually cassettes in a box, and we mastered this album off of it. And Deb is actually in the audience because that's where I first met her, in Davis. And the live record is a great example of the type of night that and music that we put on back in the day. And we now have been revived again by Deb. And we're doing it again, and we've done it at some famous places like Pappy and Harriet's up on the high desert, Pioneer Town in California. And we're getting ready to do it in more places and go on the road as soon as everything opens up.
So today we have the honor of having the brothers on. And David, I'm going to get you in there because we was kind of hanging out in the green room because I had a little funny story before we went on there. But how did you get your 2 cents in the band?
Well, I was in Texas and they were in California, and I decided that I'd had enough of Texas and came out to California originally to, get my claim to fame and fortune. And they told me that, hey, look, we're going to start a new band, and it's going to be, R&B, blues. We're going to write songs. We're going to play old covers. We're going to do it. And I said, all right. And then we started rehearsing and started playing clubs, and before you knew it, we were one of the top bands in places like Sacramento and Chico and Santa Rosa and, all over Northern California. We did gigs in San Francisco and in Berkeley. And so we put out a 45. In those days, you put out a 45 and we, cassettes. And did real good until we all decided that we were going to go our separate ways at one point. But now we're picking up right where we left off. And it's very, this CD that we have is indicative of what we can do in a club because it's part technique and it's part show.
And last but not least, we have on with us today is Scott as well, the one with the shades. Y'all can't see him, but on the Zoom, we have the Scott with the shades, the cool cat. So
he is a cool cat.
Tell us about you, man.
Well, what do you want to know?
Oh, come on.
You know it's radio, man. We want to know all the juice, man.
Well, like Brad said, he and I came out here late 60s, and we played during the 70s in various ensembles, various bands. And then we moved out to Fairfield, California, and we reformed a band at that point. And that's when David came out and joined the band. And we started with the idea that we were tired of hair bands and look at me bands. We were tired of seeing this, what looked like an evolution of just showtime and no connection to where all of this music began. So the heritage of it, the blues, rhythm and blues, soul music, was really important for us to show the audiences that music not only is the root of all of this, but it could be updated and it could be performed and done currently and would be as good, if not better, than anything that they had. So that set us apart from everybody else. And we began to play the classics, but we updated them. We upgraded them a bit in tempo. And being only a 4-piece band, we thought, well, of course, we can all play these instruments. So we traded off the bass and the guitar and vocals. And then I added the blues harmonica to it. And that became our ensemble. And we went from just being a bar band with on a picnic table, basically, to standing on stages and winning contests and being in demand all over Northern California.
And it's amazing to do it as a family too. And there's one other individual that we definitely want to cover. And David, maybe you can do the honors. Tell us a little bit about Mike and how he made such an impact in this band.
Did you say David?
Yes, David, or any. It could be David, it could be Brad, whoever.
Well, Mike was our original drummer, and that's when we were a 4-piece band. Mm-hmm. We were playing a lot of the bigger clubs around Northern California, and we had 4 people. So, like Scott said, each set we do, like you're playing clubs, you do sets. You have to play for like 3 or 4 hours. Each set, a different guy would play bass, and then we had this guy Mike, who we auditioned. Because we were looking for a drummer before we got started. And we were all in this restaurant and we agreed to meet him there. And he said, yeah, I played with so-and-so and I played with so-and-so. And they said, my brother Scott says, well, show us something, you know. And he didn't have his drums or anything. This guy came out with his hands and he played a drum solo with his hands popping his knuckles for the sound. Wow. And we were like, this is like something from Barnum and Bailey, right? So we said, you're in.
Well, it was a Star Spangled Banner,
show.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, it was the Star Spangled Banner. Okay. Yeah, and we said, okay. And then we started rehearsing, and come to find out, he was a Charlie Watts, Ringo Starr kind of solid, steady drummer. He had one style, but he had that style down, and it fit with what we were doing. And Mike has since then passed on, but he was a real character, and he became a showman, you know, as we all are. And we together, it was a great, but now we have another drummer, a man with a lot of experience, and we played with him. And he picked up a lot of our stuff, mostly without rehearsal, you know, so he's really good too. But Mike, I miss Mike, and he was a real authentic R&B drummer.
And y'all's recent live CD, that was recorded in California. Tell us about that special process of making that project.
Why don't we let the executive producer tell you?
Well, I was looking through a box of things which my husband likes to keep for years and years. And I said, what are these? They say NoBS 1981, January 16th and 17th. Are these? Was I there? Wait a minute. Was I there? And he said, yes, you were there. And so we played it and I'm like, oh my God, that's me screaming on there. And so I said, oh, can we make a record out of it? And he said, well, I don't know, because it's on cassette tape. So he took it into the mastering person, David Williams, and they worked on it together. And it's interesting because the fact that it was on cassette tape meant that the sound was actually embedded in the gel, I guess it is, in the tape. And they were able to pull out sounds that you wouldn't be able to do with a digital recording, for example.
What do you say to the young cats out there who are in bands and are trying to do big things, like on the level that y'all have been able to fortunately be able to do? What, based on your own experience, I'll let each one of y'all respond to it. What are some of the things you learned on your journey so far that has allowed you to have the kind of success you have right now?
Scott?
First thing I would say is practice.
That's a good one.
I would say that don't take that lightly. One thing we were known and are known for is how tight we are. And you only get that when you play with people for a long period of time and have very specific arrangements. Don't get up there and think just because you might look good or individually you might sound good that the band's going to be any good. You have to come together, and that takes rehearsal, and that takes practice and focus. I would say that's where you begin.
That's good. That's good. You want to do David?
Yeah, I would add to that in that if you're in a band, solos a kind of a different bag. But if you're in a band, which is where we flourish, you have to play into and off of the other people on the stage. You can't be doing your own thing and have the other people doing their own thing. It's like Scott said. I know it's a cliche, but it creates some nice feelings and some nice grooves and excitement if it's kind of like teamwork. Is if you're listening to the other people on the stage.
And also Brad.
Well, those guys are totally right. And the thing I would add to it for young people is, first off, like any other endeavor in life, you're going to meet a lot of people that you really don't want to deal with or work with in the business, in the industry, whether it's somebody who runs a club or a record label or whatever, because it's the world. It has real people in it. Mm-hmm. Don't let that stop you. Don't let the people you run into determine what you're going to do with your career and your music. Like my brothers have said, dedicate yourself to the music, not to the money you're going to make or the stages you're going to play on or the applause you're going to get. And that paid off for us, like Scott said and David said, because we play into each other and we rehearse those breaks. We want to get all that stuff really tight so that it's one unit. And when you're young and you're starting out, there's a lot of things that can distract you about the business, but let your love of music be your guide and do the best music you can all the time. Don't take a shortcut. Learn theory, learn how to play things. It's a wonderful experience. We're at the stage right now where we've opened for Bo Diddley and Canned Heat and a lot of acts in our lifetime, but it's not about that for us right now. Sure, if we got asked to do the Rolling Stones tour, we'd be happy to go on it, but because we want to play music, not because we want to be a star. That's the key.
Yeah, I could add something to that. If you're going to play music. You're not always going to be on the stage. You're not always going to be writing a hit song, but you can always pick up your instrument or instruments in the case of my oldest brother, and you can play them for your own benefit. And music is something you can keep with you in any context, any format, any situation. It's a lifelong thing, and don't pick it up and set it down just because you're not on stage from time to time.
And with recent interviews that I have with artists, we've touched on how COVID has made an impact, and especially when it comes to just daily routine and everyone having to make adjustments in their personal lives and professional lives. How has the pandemic impacted your band, and how have y'all made adjustments to stay afloat?
Well, actually, I might be able to answer this one. And when we put this project together, we actually wanted to launch it in 2020 originally. And when the pandemic hit, it gave us the opportunity to really focus on the project, get it produced correctly. And what we really realized is that the pandemic actually helped with the launch of this recording, because if you haven't listened to it, it's like you're in the room, and the audience is really the fifth member of the band in this recording. It is front and center. And so all these people that have been longing to have a live performance are actually able to obtain that experience by listening to this album.
That's awesome, because so many people out there, they need that inspiration when they hear stories like that, because we all have our different, challenges or whatnot, but at the same day, we got to get up and get moving and just keep pressing forward. Now, Scott, when it comes to the studio time, what is that experience usually like? Is it uptight, tense, or is it real loose and just everyone having a good time? What was it usually like in the studio?
Anticipation is high, performance is difficult, and it goes on for a very long time. There's no way in the studio to recreate unless you set up in a large studio and play live, which some recordings are done that way. And in fact, our single that was released, we sat up in the studio and we basically did that live in the studio. But generally, you are individually putting things together, and sometimes you're playing at the same time, sometimes you aren't. So in order to get that cohesiveness and that vibration and connection to the other players, it is very difficult. The studio environment usually requires at least a good engineer and a good producer if you're going to have anything worth listening to. The band itself, particularly if you're performers like us, it's a real challenge to sit in a chair and play anything that really excites you or the other players. I would say that is the most challenging part of studio work.
And David, when y'all are creating music, does anyone take the lead? Like, is there someone who kind of bosses everyone around? I'm gonna get y'all in the hot seat, or is it just a full collaboration where it just flows?
Easy.
Well, we came up with the original formula, and that is, if you do want to do one of your songs or you want to do a cover song, then you're going to have to write a chart for it, what we call a head chart. And then we were going to decide who does what. But I didn't always sing. I didn't always play guitar. I didn't always play bass. And it goes for my two brothers as well. So we had a formula where we wanted everybody to do all the things that they could do. And we didn't want to become monotonous and have one person do everything the same. And you know, I didn't, not necessarily monotonous, but I want to go back a little bit to your pandemic thing. There's been a shortage of exposure for fans to live music. And simply put, this is one of the greatest live music recordings around, especially today. And I don't say that to be bragging, but if you listen to it, it has more live to it than most recordings you hear that say this is a live recording. It's amazing. Like, it's like you're on the dance floor or you're on stage left and looking at what's going on stage right. So it's a very unique audio situation on this recording. So it's worth it just to listen for that, let alone the great rhythm and blues and the great arrangements, like Scott said, that we did. You know, that was the tradition back in other types of music where you could take a song that had been done before, but if you did your arrangement and it became NoBS arrangement, some people go, well, you know, I like their version of it better than I like their version. You know, it wasn't, the original kind of goes out the window. So I just want to make a point about how the quality of the liveness of this recording.
And once again, we are talking to the NoBS band. You go to the NoBSmusic.com. Again, that's the NoBSmusic.com. And before we let y'all go, David, I want to get your opinion on this. And Scott, you can interrupt him if you want. But when it comes to the focus now for the music industry and just looking from 10,000 feet up off the ground, what is it that you anticipate, hopefully, when things kind of open up where people can go back to concerts and live shows? What do you expect to happen in the near future? Well, I should say expect to happen. What will you look forward to happen in the near future?
I'll start. Scott can interrupt if you want.
Brad, you can interrupt if you'd like.
I intend to. I'll be right on.
I thought you would, so I just...
Thank you.
As our CD indicates, we are even more live, and we are, as well as people who can play their instruments, which seem to be a lack of based on some of the higher exposures, like on TV. we can play those instruments, and I think people appreciate that. And you put together that with the showmanship we have, with the extroverted style that we put out there, and people get build them up and tear them down up there on the stage. I would say that that's what I'm looking forward to getting back into larger groups of people, because anywhere from 300 to 3,000 people, there's an energy if the band's clicking, and we can click, and we've proven that. And I would like to do that again, because it's something for the band as well as the audience when the energy's at a high level.
I'd like to hear what Brad has to say.
Well, I would want to say we had an advantage over a lot of people. We were all born on Highway 61. That's the blues highway. It goes from New Orleans to
Chicago.
It goes to Fort Madison, Iowa, and then it picks up there the railroad that goes either to Chicago or Kansas City. The Blues Highway was where certain immigrants to America, Italian Americans, Lebanese Americans, Greek Americans, they ran restaurants and hotels and even their home and different stores where Black musicians could travel safely along that highway from New Orleans to Chicago or Kansas City to St. Louis and Memphis. We're part of that story. We grew up in that. Our uncles and aunts owned restaurants where we saw Black musicians when other people in other parts of the country were prevented from it. And then when we lived in the East Bay, we really studied funk. And funk showed us how to get it tight, make it right. And so these were experiences like listening to great players in Texas that other people don't get. So get out there and seek out all of the great musicians you can find. It's worth it.
When I'm looking forward to when we get back on the stage, that the audiences will be even more energetic and appreciative of that experience than maybe they ever have for many decades.
Once again, true honor having the one and only group, because there's more than one person that we interviewed today. NoBS Music. You go to the NoBSmusic.com. And big shout out to the boss, I believe, as well. I was told, Miss Deborah.
He got it right. You got it right.
I had to make sure I don't mess this one up. So for the last word, Deborah, what do you look forward to as you're growing? Just not just exposure for the band, but also just getting new listeners and new fans out there.
Well, I am their number one fan. I was their original fan from 40 years ago. And I would explain to people, oh, have you ever heard this band, the Knobs or NoBS? People would say, no, we never heard of them. I would be like, I don't have anything to show you there was a single, so I could play the single, but I'm looking forward to sharing this music with everybody. I think it's something that people really need right now. And I want to look forward to traveling with the band, getting out there. We all don't have other things to do at this point in our lives. And so we have the opportunity to be able to share this music with people all over the world.
And before we let y'all go officially, I'm going to have all y'all answer this question. Scott, Brad, David, what would you say to young people out there? We kind of touched it earlier in the show, but what will you tell young people about dreaming big and following their passion?
I'd say never give up.
I would say always keep playing music. Music is not judged by necessarily, to some degree, how much money you make, but what it does for you personally in your soul. And if you keep doing that, whatever effect it's going to have on other people will take place.
I'd say do your homework. Know what you're doing. Know why you're doing it. Have an intention. Have a point. Have a purpose. Have a focus. Don't just show up. Be there with something that people can use, and be proud of your work, because it will last.
Man, that's a good one, Scott, because just showing up randomly is almost like going on vacation, but you didn't choose your destination.
Good one.
It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to Detroit, but you end up in, Florida.
Well, so Woody Allen said 95% of what you do is just showing up. So I kind of think he's right. Show up.
That's awesome.
I'll say that, the different kinds of music we do. We grow older, but the music is timeless.
You know what? True legends say that because I heard that from an old school producer. So yeah, that floats around. If you listen right now, you might want to take some notes, listen to this show again, send it to anybody else who's in the band. And especially if they need to take a humble pill and learn some more history. I highly suggest you go to the NoBSmusic.com. I also learn more about what they're doing individually and as a whole band together. True honor having y'all on I Am Refocus Radio. Anything y'all would like to say to our audience before we let you check out?
Thank you, Shemaiah. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you, Shemaiah.
Thank you, Shemaiah.
Thank you. And we will see you soon on the road.
Oh, definitely, man. And we're going to have you on again when y'all have more projects coming out so we can be that nice big megaphone to tell the whole world what's going down.
Ace,
Yes.
Ace, yeah.
Amen. Can I get a witness?
You did.
So once again, true honor talking to NoBS band. Go to their website right now, the NoBSmusic.com. Once again, that's NoBSmusic.com. So, like we say on every single show, you know the drill. Keep God first, stay focused, and peace. Hey, it's Shemaiah Reed with I Am Refocus Radio. Make sure you go to IamRefocusRadio.com to listen to today's episode. Once again, like we always say, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.